Nope.
Hi, John.
Matthew,
How you doing? Good? Good.
Chief will figure it out. He's a sound guy.
You want to check the wireless mic?
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Excuse me, John.
Just want to make sure.
Check,
Not
No,
bad.
it's not on.
Is there any mic that's unusually loud?
Check, 1, 2. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Hello?
It's all.
Yep, it's on.
Hello?
It sounds like it's a programming issue, maybe. Oh, well, all right. We're good now.
I'll turn it off and see if this is. This is off now, so it's not this one.
Hey, Jan, how you doing? Just power through.
Check.
Yeah. All right, good evening to everyone. Call the May 7th Mount Vernon Council meeting to order. There are not any changes that I'm aware of to the agenda that we have in front of us.
We've approved the agenda at the same time. Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is communication. Is there anybody that would like to address the council? If so, please step forward. Sir, name and address, please.
Edward L. Schultz, 419 8th Street, Northwest. I missed a couple of council meetings, and I was just curious, and I haven't heard any correspondence out there about any action taken about noise abatement of the train thing, but I'm sure something got done, but I just, out of the loop, I was just kind of looking to get back in the loop. That's all we got.
Real quick, Mayor, I just wanted to let you know. So we talked about bringing the consultant back who did the initial study. There's a new engineer at the railroad, so we had to bring the consultant back just to make sure nothing has changed since the previous engineer had signed off on the project, and then we can start going from there.
Okay.
That
Is there a end date, or is it an open-end date?
open-ended at this point. Dave, the consultant, do you remember the consultant's name?
Quiet Zone Technologies.
Yeah. So, we've got a proposal from them that will come back to the council, and that will be the first step.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Approval of council minutes, April 16th, 2018, and approval of liquor license for Casey's General Store, 1599.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, resolutions for approval. Item 1, Resolution 5/7/2018A, creating the City of Mount Vernon Poet Laureate position and establishing qualifying criteria for appointments. Chris?
So, at the last meeting, it was discussed whether or not to do this in a resolution or ordinance, and at the request of the audience, we went the resolution route, so I kind of gave you a resolution to work from. These are all the parameters that I thought we had kind of talked about to date. I did send this out to Dale and Steve Rivets both prior to the meeting. I haven't heard anything back from either about any changes, but I did think it established some criteria and then some criteria for what the position needs to fulfill once they're appointed.
Mr. Marvitz, do you care to speak on it? Do you-
I haven't seen, I didn't get the email, so I'll take a look at it real quick.
My main question was just to concern that the minimum qualifications were agreed upon by your committee.
I apologize for not having seen it
That's okay, do you want me to?
You can have,
It's just 4
you
points.
take a look at my copy if you want.
That'd be great, yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
So there's the two-year appointment by the council after Area Arts Council makes a recommendation, and then there's the 4 criteria that are included. And then up above is the, what we, I guess, expectations of that position.
Okay. I met with the committee this week on the criteria, and we were kind of softening up the criteria, at least as far as like published work goes and things like that.
Okay.
We didn't want to be exclusionary.
Yeah,
I thought we would make some of those determinations when we got into the committee phase.
yeah. That was my only concern too, is mainly items 3 and 4 must have original works published and must be able to demonstrate contribution to poetry at the local, state, or national level. I mean, that might be speaking to what you were just discussing.
I can provide you with alternative language now if you prefer to do that, or I'm not sure how you'd like to proceed.
Now would probably be
I
best.
think that would be
Okay.
great because, I mean, I think that Chris, you did a really good job based on what we talked about in the last meeting. You made it short and simple and easy to understand. And I think it seemed to follow what we discussed.
Is there a reason why a person must be at least 18 years of age though? I know, I've heard of several younger people in the nation that have pretty good credentials even at the age of 10, 12, 13. So I don't know whether there's some stipulation that 18 years of old, that age is old. I mean, you could have somebody in high school that would do that, so.
From those that did have, I think the 18 years of age came from those that I found, had, a majority of them had that as a criteria at 18. You can do what you want. I just
was wondering if there's some legal thing or anything, but I would say, like I said, there's creativity at all ages, so
Yeah, I'd be in favor of saying 16 or older because to allow students that are capable and have proven that to have an interest in it and to fulfill the position.
We have no problem with that whatsoever.
Especially finding somebody. every
Go as
2
low as
years.
you want.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah. As I said, we want to be as inclusionary as possible.
yeah,
These are the notes that I took at our meeting last week with the committee, Amy White and Glenn Freeman. It says candidates should have demonstrated writing proficiency, have a Mount Vernon address, mailing address, be willing to fulfill the duties as outlined above. And then they will be selected on dexterity with language, depth and breadth of work, and content of the completed application. We're asking for 3 short essay questions. What connects you to the community? What do you think the role of the poet laureate should be? And why do you think you should be chosen? So,
sounds good.
If you would, can you make sure Chris receives that, just so we have it?
absolutely, yeah.
And we can obviously still move forward with the resolution, but somebody wants to make that with those changes, with the amended changes. Is that fine with you, Chris? Or do you want to come back?
Yeah, I would almost rather come back to make sure the language is correct. If you had specific language that you wanted to, like change it from 18 to 16 is an easy
Yeah.
change. However, I don't want there to be any confusion
Right.
in language that you sign without specifying that in a public forum. So I think what I would rather do is just
Hold off on this?
hold off on this table this until the 21st.
Yep.
Get the language and then.
We'll get ready.
And that would be my recommendation, to make it 16 years or older, and items 3 and 4 be revised to show more flexibility based on what Mr. Marver just read. Okay.
Okay, so we'll just
Okay, thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
table that until the next council meeting then. All right, next item, resolution 57/2018B, setting the salaries for the appointed officers and employees of Mount Vernon for fiscal year 2018-2019.
So I prepared a memo this year for you to explain some of the other changes. Of course, we brought fire over, we talked about this last year, bringing fire over to one resolution, so we're doing that at a later date. Those increases were discussed during the budget. As I stated in my memo, the police chief, myself, and the water wastewater superintendent would stay with the 2.75% increase, or at least this is what's being recommended, that the union positions received. And then I tried to explain the other three positions to you. The one caveat to that, obviously, with the Parks and Recs director is to make sure that the building moves forward, which we're going to discuss at a later point. I'm pretty confident by July we'll have a decision made on whether or not that building is moving forward, obviously. But, for instance, Public Works Director would be in line for 4.13% this year, 4.12% next year. Assistant City Administrator Sue, what amounts to 3.44 and a 3.42. And then Matt would be a 9 and a 9. I don't like doing drastic changes all in one year if I can avoid it. Spreading this over a 2-year period actually makes a lot of sense, especially for Matt. There's going to be a lot of work that needs to be done, and as soon as you announce that that building is moving forward, let alone through the construction process and then preparing to have that building open and as few bugs as possible when it does open, he'll have almost double the amount of part-time employees that he has now. Equating that out to full-time employees, he will actually have the largest department moving forward with that building. So with that, I sent the memo. I'll answer any questions on how we came up with that or how I vote on this move forward. Yeah.
Has the rural fire department weighed in, or do they know about what's being recommended here?
Yes, because they still had to approve their,
Right.
so we're still, it's kind of not a 50-50 deal, but we're still separating expenses that way that so far. We're working towards a situation where rural fire would potentially contract with the city because it's the capital improvements that they're having a trouble keeping up with. So Nate did finish the inventory. So that was kind of the one last component, inventorying all the equipment that we had down there that would need to be accounted for should that move forward. So right now it's still operating as it always has in the past, and then probably next fiscal year is when we would make the transition moving forward.
Did we do like a sanity check against other cities comparable?
Oh, that reminds me, in your comment, you said on Parks and Rec Director, the last sentence of the first paragraph, the Recreation Director in North Liberty receives a salary of $90,000 annually. And then you go on to say North Liberty also has a Rec Director.
Yeah, they have two positions at 90.
Has a what?
Two positions at 90,000.
Okay, I didn't know if you meant another city.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
Here's what I can tell you. The difficult part about the Parks and Rec Director, for instance, is just that. I would never sit here and suggest that we move to a $90,000 salary, but the comparable situations that we have would be North Liberty and Waverly currently. When we went to visit both Piasta, Williamsburg, Waukon, those individuals are running the facility but not the recreation programs. We're asking essentially this position to do both. So to give you a true comparison, it's difficult to do. What I was able to do through a study that I have is show that, for instance, Public Works Director and the wastewater superintendent should be in the same, I'll call it the same vicinity. There really, to me, was no reason hire them at different salary ranges. And moving forward, my expectation is if we happen to ever lose Alex, which I hope never happens, but if we do, that position would fall back underneath the Public Works Director moving forward. So, again, there's been a tendency to pay the person and not necessarily the position, so I try to position each of our department heads in a manner that if I were to have to go out and hire them tomorrow, where would I be? So I think this reflects that better. I would say, compared to some of the other ones that I've seen, that Matt's probably going to still be on the low side, which maybe we talk about after we know whether or not the facility does what it's supposed to do.
Well, first of all, Waverly and North Liberty are bigger facilities by far. I mean, they got they got both swimming pools and all that, so that's kind of
True.
it's kind of a hard one to compare. The reason why I ask is citizens like to see comparables. I mean, they see a 4%, and if they're getting, let's say they've gotten 1.5%, 2% the last 5 years that they've been employed, and they see that, and they're going, golly, why do they get 4%? But if you can give a comparable of different cities and show, well, it's right in line with, it's easier to swallow, is what I'm saying. And that's all I'm saying.
No, and I think I'm just being realistic with you when it comes to comparables. If I go out and ask for comparables today, I can get them. Sometimes they're skewed by the fact that they've been there for 20 years. Sometimes they're skewed by the fact that the difficult part that I have going back and trying to find comparables is that nobody has the same job description. Public Works directors are probably the closest, but they're all over the board as well as far as what duties they're required to have and not have. I am requiring Nick moving forward to get his grade certification, so he started down that. That's not in his job description, that's something that I'm required to do as a fallback plan. So, again, I will say this, I'm going to use these two as a comparison. When I came here, there was a contract for Nick and a contract for Alex. Technically speaking, Alex was supposed to answer to Nick, and Nick was has been making $2,000 less than Alex. Now the question is that I'm asking myself is why, other than nobody did their homework when that was originally done. So I'm trying to incrementally over a couple of years try to right some what I consider, I don't want to call them wrongs, I just see some inequities there. And we've started talking about this, I can tell you from a personnel standpoint, we started talking about this when Paul was still here on the personnel committee. So we've been discussing it for almost a year, kind of going back and forth. I do have a study, if anybody wants to see it, that does, it does go through a point system and show you where department heads should fall out. And there is basically, I've told the personnel committee this, there's 3 levels of department heads for me, based upon their duties, the number of employees they have, and kind of where they fall out in that. The only issue that I'll tell you with this study is that there's 2 groups. There's a pure group and then there's a vicinity group, and they're weighted differently. I would have to go back to the company that did this and have them weight it for Mount Vernon versus Tipton where it originated from, because again, we're being only 15 minutes from the Cedar Rapids, Marion Metro, that I'm not going to try and compare to those, but I'm going to weight them closer to those because that's where I'm going to lose. So, if anybody wants to see that, I brought it with me as well. But and like I said, that was my goal. The largest one being obviously Matt, and the facility brings a whole new aspect to his position. So.
I'm on personnel, and we have this discussion over several meetings, and everybody can have a different interpretation of what value a person is or how important the job is, but I think this model over a 2-year period does probably clean up a couple of internal equities that were out there, quite frankly, and maybe they weren't glaring, but I think they were definitely existent there, so it's a process to get some of that internal equity issues taken care of, so that's my endorsement.
You helped answer a question I have, because you do the reviews on an annual basis, right?
Yes.
And the resolution is just based on this fiscal year, 2018-19.
Correct.
So my only question was, I don't have any issues with the argument put forward and your justifications. It's just that I'd like to see us base the second year salary increase
Yeah.
solely on.
You're only
the review that
approving
takes
the,
place.
you're only approving the first year. I don't want to do this year and then not tell you the overall plan and then come back next year and
Yeah.
you're going, wait a minute.
So you'll use this as a guideline, and I'm
Yes.
sure you'll use that with them as a guideline for the
Correct.
expectations, right?
I will say that, and I said this in my memo, from an overall perspective as far as what we've accomplished this year and what the department heads have done and I think what they've done for the community,
Yeah.
it was easy doing evaluations this year for sure. But yeah, in a perfect world for me, that would always be part of every employee would be the evaluation and then that dictating to a certain extent some of their wage increase. It's a little difficult to do. I can do that with department heads, I can't necessarily do that with the rest of them. But I do have department heads review all of their employees regardless, even though they're in the union contract, because it sets a basis obviously for behaviors and expectations.
That's good.
Good. Little history lesson, we were even doing reviews just a few years ago, and whatever the union contract, or whatever the raises were for the union contract was basically what everybody got.
Okay.
So I mean, this is a whole
And this is,
ballgame.
yeah, I like seeing this,
Yeah.
because I think that they should be merit-based.
Exactly.
I would disagree with you.
It's a good goal. It's hard in the government.
Well, I think we're,
Yeah,
I mean, to a certain extent, this kind of helps push that a little bit from a merit-based standpoint. It is.
Yeah, I mean, this looks to me like around 17,000 total increase across all of these. It's a negligible amount. I would tend to also agree with the criteria as laid out in the memo.
And just so you're well aware, on the largest one being Matt's, the expectation I have is that not this raise, but potentially the next one. I hope to offset some of that with the revenue, as I would offset the revenue of the assistant from the facility. And of course, like I said, this would take place until July 1. I should hope that we have some movement on the facility, and then if not, then this changes.
oh, the other question I had was the mention in here about the park and rec director keeping the planning and zoning duties.
No, just keeping so he gets paid a $5,000 stipend
Yeah,
right now for the planning and zoning duties.
uh-huh,
I would take the $5,000 stipend away and then add 9%. He would keep the $5,000 stipend basically as part of his salary, because he would be so much lower than, if you took the 5,000 away, it would be 53,000. Then the percentage increases to get him to even remotely close to where you need would be significantly higher than 9%. So my suggestion was 9% on top of the 58. So the 58 comes in with that 5,000 that he's making, so he doesn't lose that.
okay.
It all works out the same.
Yeah,
Regardless how you do it.
I understand where you're coming from. It's just that when we talked about having the assistant administrator position, that person taking over the P and Z duties,
Right.
when the community center, the wellness center gets underway.
So, and that's the other part of this. The other part of the 5,000 is Matt's not going to lose those duties come July 1.
Right,
Because he's going to be responsible for helping to train the next individual coming in. So
Okay.
for the most part, he's still going to be administrator, pro tem, whatever you want to call it, until that facility opens for sure.
okay.
It's going to switch. Nick is going to be busier during the construction of the building.
Mhm.
And Matt will be busy doing a lot of what I would established work, programming, so on and so forth, making sure that we're, like I said, we have as few kinks when we open as possible. And then, you know, obviously that switches, then they can go back and pay attention to subdivisions again. So,
I would like to move resolution 57/2018
I will definitely second that.
Any comments? Roll call, please, Sue.
Christensen,
Yes.
Rotabush,
Yes.
Rose. Oh, sorry.
You're gonna wait a while.
West. Yes. Weisler.
Yes.
Good work on that. Next item, resolution 57/2018C, approving the 2018 communication services agreement with Lynn County.
so this has been a discussion point for like 2.5 years now. Almost a year ago, we requested to Lynn County that they put the dispatch fees into a 2080 agreement. That was on behalf of Hiawatha, Mount Vernon, Lisbon, and Robin. They've done that. We've made some minor changes. What it amounts to, that 14,000, is all 4 entities agreed to basically pay for one dispatcher for the next 2 years. I can tell you that there is ambition to get a second dispatcher in like 2020. There is plenty of precedence for us paying dispatch fees. Polk County, there are a number of counties where they're requiring us to do this. The issue that we had before, and we'll still kind of have to date, is the fact that there are communities in Lynn County that contract with the sheriff's office. They still haven't proven to us yet that there's an equitable way that they're doing this, and that it's kind of an all-encompassing deal for those communities. So Center Point, for instance, pays the sheriff's office X amount of dollars per hour that they're there, and then they contract for that. They're not getting separate dispatch fees on top of that we can see. And what the sheriff is saying is that they're incorporated into that overall fee. Chief, John, that's where I think the 4 entities, the 4 chiefs, we all kind of are watching that closely. One dispatcher at $14,000 is in the budget. We knew it was coming. So it's just kind of a matter of timing. But at this point, like I said, I think all 4 entities have agreed to this one in 2020. I'm not sure. But then again, we're only going to have 3 supervisors at that point. So I don't know what's going to happen.
So what is the dispatcher paid total? I mean, we've got our share there, but what's the total amount that person's gonna be paid?
I would have to pull all the numbers together and say it's, the 4 communities agreed collectively that their amount that they're paying would fund a dispatcher, and then for the current fiscal year that we're operating in, and then again for the second fiscal year. Our portion, if you recall back 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, the initial proposal for us was $56,000 for dispatch fees. Going through and looking at their price breakdown, which we still don't know what formula they used for that, other than just sharing, they were using call volume and stuff like that, but really when you break it down, there were some discrepancies that we discussed too, and so we got that down to where we're at right now. So basically the 4 communities, Robbins, Hiawatha, Lisbon, and Mount Vernon, are collectively coming together with funding the 1 dispatch hire that we agreed to through the process. As we continue discussions, and as Chris says, this will be visited again very soon, as they're going to be looking for the next thing. What it does allow also is, as we continue to talk about, as you've been watching, the Lynn County communication studies for dispatch fees that Marion has been underway, and kind of spearheading for the consolidation studies of all PSAPs in Lynn County, which is what the state wants everybody to do. And there's funding sources available, grant funding and stuff like that. Sheriff has been on record, and he's not been quiet to let everybody know that he does not support it. He doesn't think it's in the best interest of the county citizens. That's a whole nother animal as we go through. But the good news is that the consolidation study will be coming shortly, hopefully, and we should have a lot more solid answers and be able to make better decisions with probably defined formulas to figure out what's best suited for us.
Because as of right now, 2020, this number will go from 14 to 28,000. I assume that's safe to assume.
Yeah, I mean, the next round, it was supposed to be, again, consistent with the 14, but maybe with the annual increase of whatever that employee cost.
Could be more than.
And then reviewing back, once they go back, once that end date is there, that's when the conversations will start all over again.
So is this roughly based off population, or is it roughly based off like crime, the calls?
Calls
I mean,
and
you
services.
just don't know that right now.
They're using calls for service, which
Calls for service, okay.
which I objected to from the standpoint is they were using every call for service. So
Right.
if I go to Highway 13 and 30 for a car accident and assist the Lynn County Sheriff's Office, they're billing me to go to their call to assist handle that.
See, it would be better if it
and
was
so-
population based, because you're not changing.
And we proposed that as well. So that, all those conversations underwent many times through numerous meetings over the past few years.
So who ultimately has the power to choose? I mean, obviously, sounds like the sheriff's department.
Well, it all comes down to the board of supervisors and what they're going to, it comes back. Right now, there's tax money that's supposed to be allocated for some of that. And, I indicated, if you looked at the budget and broke that down originally, approximately $197,000 of Mount Vernon tax money goes to the sheriff's department budget in their original, but it's, it was for patrol, for jail, for dispatch and all of that. And the board of supervisors have been pretty vocal about the stipend portion, other communities are paying and we're not for this free service that we're getting, but that's a difference of opinion that we have.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I can honestly say we've been discussing it for almost 2 years right now. This is, Hiawatha, for instance, I think they started over $100 and some thousand is what they wanted originally.
yeah, basically we're at 25% of what everybody's at 25% of what they originally were, I think is where we're at. So they cut it in half and then they cut it in half again, we're at that 14 mark.
And Bob's here, I think we'll, 2020, if they decide to do something different, we talk about the legality of how they're doing their conclusions. I do believe this shows that we are willing, obviously, to pay our fair share. Yet, and Doug can allude this, we've talked about, well, let's reach out to Marion, let's reach out to Cedar Rapids. Both assured us that it would be more expensive than this to go that route. So, the other news, like I said, there are 2 meetings next week as far as the PSAP consolidation goes, and hopefully that will continue to move forward. At a very minimum, I think Marion and Cedar Rapids are interested in doing something for sure, so it might present options for the city moving forward, but it's not going to likely get any cheaper.
Right.
And there's already been precedents in Iowa as far as communities or counties requiring communities to pay for that dispatch fee. So,
What would be the outcome if we said, no, we don't want to do it? Just out of curiosity.
I don't know.
yeah, I don't know that anybody's really broached that.
You guys want to be the first?
Here's my other thing is, it's a public safety issue, and I would never do anything that would hinder our officers. And so, bringing this to you after 2 years, if it's a number that I guess we feel comfortable at least recommending paying at this point. If it changes, then I think then we talk about how that changes our dynamic, but it's, as we've discussed, it's gotta be all the communities. It can't just be Mount Vernon taking that, saying, we don't believe it's fair, and all the other communities agreeing to pay it. So, the mayor of Robbins, I feel like, has done a fairly good job of, again, getting it in half and then getting it in half again. And everybody feels comfortable at this point. And if we decide to all group together the next go around.
It's also true that the Board of Supervisors' constituency of that group is going to change.
Correct.
So having a fresh conversation after that change
Yes. Yep.
might be worthwhile. And quite frankly, if it's true that we contribute $197,000 of tax money to the county, and you can enumerate precisely the things that we get in value for that, then, for instance, like space in the jail. Okay, well, so how many, inmate hours Did we get in return for that? How many of all those things, right? And what are those things supposed to be valued at, right? You know, an inmate in prison is $40 a day, $50 a day, I don't know, I've heard numbers, right? So it seems to me you could walk into the Board of Supervisors and just say, you know, here's the itemization of what we get from you, and here's what we pay, and we're paying too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot will be determined on who is left
Yeah,
sitting at the table.
that's right. So, you know, maybe a conversation that's not just the police chief going in, but the mayor, you know.
Phone calls, emails.
Renewing the conversation at the next cycle of the conversation.
Correct.
With a little more facts and different people on the other side of the table, and maybe stronger representation of the city might create it.
And I will say that Kim and Hiawatha has been wonderful as far as crunching numbers, and so I feel like collectively all four communities are on the exact same page with each other right now. So hopefully moving forward we'll have, and I know we'll have a lot more conversation.
They should expect a pushback on the next one.
I don't
because
think
they'll
I
have to,
expect
they'll have
it
to
quite-
show some numbers that support the use of the second.
So I'm just afraid every 2 years, this number's gonna double.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, and that's kind of our concern as well.
Well, with that said, I'll entertain a motion.
Move resolution 5-7-2018C.
I'll second.
Any comments? No comments, roll call?
West,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Leesland.
Yes.
All right. Next item, consideration of claims list. Everybody should have the most recent version in front of you.
Not seeing an additional sheet today. I would make the motion to approve the claims as presented for May 7th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion and consideration of setting a public, excuse me, public hearing date to amend the 2017-2018 fiscal year budget.
As I stated in my report, this is precautionary. The pool budget, as it is every year, is an issue. We're just trying to decide whether or not we actually need to amend the budget or not. So Sue and I felt that it was probably best to go ahead and set the public hearing date. Should we not have to, obviously, then we don't have to amend, but should we need to, we have that ability yet before the end of the fiscal year.
So I'd like to move that we set a public hearing date for May 21st, 2018 for a possible budget amendment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion and consideration of accepting the terms and conditions of the grant award from the Hall Prime Foundation.
So this is the information I've been sitting on for a week, and it's been an absolute struggle. But you have the Hall for Fine, and I'm gonna combine the next two if you don't mind, as far as my dialogue goes. So the Hall Prime Foundation stepped forward with a dollar-for-dollar match up to $500,000. I've given you the terms and conditions that they've put forward. In the meantime, Ernie Bursch has stepped forward and is asked to name the facility the Lester Bursch Family Community Wellness Center for $1 million contribution, which Hall Prime will match. So Hall Prime's dollar-for-dollar match is now $500,000. We have $1 million. So all of our funding sources, lost funds $1 million, TIP bonds 5.5, the naming opportunity is $1 million, Hall Prime is 500,000. We currently have just over, I believe, 150,000 in local donations and pledges, with Dave Van Meter match dollar for dollar for that, so another 150,000. We are now at $8.3 million worth of pledged funds. The overall current budget right now is 8.1 or just over 8.1. The next item on the agenda is asking permission to remove our ask to the Enhanced Iowa Board for the CAT grant application. The reason for that is they specify that they would like to be the last dollar in. We currently don't have a last dollar in, so continuing to sit on their docket is only taking time and space from other communities. We aren't going to be awarded anything when we're sitting at more than enough money. They're not going to allow us to remove or decrease any of these amounts in order to get their funding.
Can we add scope to the project?
So,
That's my question.
so yes and no. The one thing, and John and I were just talking about this before the meeting, I had to temper excitement just a little bit. So, even though we have enough money, more than enough money to pay for the facility, we still have a cash flow that we have to worry about. So, $5.5 million right now is currently what the council is allowed to borrow. That was the maximum you told the general public that you would go to. You have another $1 million in cash and loss, or will have by the time that the construction of the building is done. The good news is the Ernie Burrish Foundation, or the Ernie Burrish donation is going to come in one full sweep. So that leaves us with about $7.5 million, in which what I would consider cash, once the borrowing is made. That leaves a gap of just under $600,000. And it's that $600,000 that I can't just go to the local bank and get a short-term construction note, because all notes are the same for us. You're maxed out at 5.5, so unless these donations come in as cash contributions, we have to be careful, because a lot of these pledges are in 3-year terms. So some of that money is not going to be here for 3 more years. We still have to cover that gap, either with dollars that we already have in the books and reserves, or they have to come in. So that's where I know people are gonna go, well, you've already gotten that far, what happens if you keep pushing, why can't we get the pool? We're not going to get there. We don't have the capacity to get there. We do have the potential, and we did ask the architects to try and add 1,000 square feet into the building, so 29,000 square feet to 30,000 square feet to get a little bit more flexible space. We have what I would consider an extremely solid facility, one that I think Matt's excited about as well. It did get us a rock wall. All the alternatives are in there, the geothermal. We will be able to do, I think one of the things that we did talk about pushing the scope would be on the exterior, whether it be, potential for an amphitheater or something like that, an outdoor area, because those can all be done at a later date. We can make preparations for them and then do them at a later date. We did talk about the potential for, if we do have extra when this is all done, sticking that into a foundation and being able to work towards future projects as well. And then maybe the fundraising group becomes a Friends of the Lester Burrish Family Community Center committee, and we create our own 501c3, something of that nature. So we have some options out there that are available to us moving forward, just being strategic and I think being smart. Really, I believe we need to have this facility open for 2 or 3 years, make sure that it breaks even as we are planning it to, or as close to breaking even as possible. We're going to continue to collect sales tax dollars for another probably 16 years beyond this. So we have some options moving forward. There's a lot of, the one thing that I can tell you about everybody that's been involved thus far is they're definitely forward thinking. They haven't stopped. John is in the audience, can speak more to that too. I can't say enough for that group. When I got news on the $1 million, I was actually on the way to pick my son up from the hospital. I almost got in an accident on 80. It was one of those once in a lifetime, I think, conversations that you get to have, and it's all because of that group and their contacts and what they've done. So
we're still going too.
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt you, but we are still actively fundraising.
Yeah,
And I don't know how many of you know Lester Gorish. I mean, he was here when I came to Mount Vernon, very prominent businessman. Nick's living in his house, Nissen is. But he was a wonderful guy, and I know Ernie said, best big brother a person could have. So that's pretty neat.
Very cool.
I went to school with his daughters. They were younger, but the Burrish family was very, very well known and respected in Mount Vernon.
And I think the comment that Ernie made is he's been waiting for a project similar to this to really commemorate his brother. And obviously, by accepting this, you're accepting that the new name of the facility is going to be the Lester Burrish Family Community Wellness Center. But I'm excited. This is one of your goals. We're there. We can withdraw our application from CAT. We can start moving forward almost immediately. The OPN Architects is getting close to having a finished document that we can bring back to you and show you. But for the most part, like I said, it's the facility that everybody's has seen. It was at Chocolate Walk. The group had a little monitor up there, and it was pretty. Saw a number of people going up and taking a look at it. So with that, definitely would recommend signing the Hall Prime terms and conditions for that agreement and withdrawing from CAT, 2 different votes, but just wanted to give you that.
Couple points here. This is an example, culmination of an example here about valuable relationships. And Hall Prime Foundation, Ernie Burrish was the person that made the motion to give us the $500,000 because he had a plan in mind. And all the relationships that have been developed over time in this community between Ernie, Les, and everybody else that we'll talk about with Hall Prime. I mean, there are a few people in Mount Vernon that are on that committee. And yes, the Hall Prime is the $500,000. Bad news is that the first payment doesn't come in until the last day of 2019. But that's a cash flow issue that we'll deal with. Yes, there's a big number on the bottom there, but a number that I'm looking at, and that's going to be part of the message that I keep talking to people. I brought in 6 checks tonight, I think, is that there's still $350,000 there. That's on the table. We haven't matched with Dave yet. So, and there's so many things we can do with whether it's an operational budget or scholarship, if we have extra money, scholarships to students that can't afford memberships right away. And yes, the pool is not a serious discussion in that, but it's a good position to be in.
There are, my son actually plays with an individual whose father represents a number of refugees from Africa in the Cedar Rapids metro and has asked about our facility and what types of programs. We've talked about all-inclusive equipment, after-school programs, being able to offer to not just Mount Vernon, obviously Solon and Lisbon, surrounding communities, Marion, Cedar Rapids. The goal with this facility is usership. I mean, the way that this thing breaks even is having people use the facility. So I think when it's all said and done, we will have a facility that is head and shoulders above a number of others, operated extremely well. We have a director that happens to have experience operating these facilities in some of the largest metros in the Midwest, Kansas City. So I'm pretty confident, about as confident as I'm going to be with a facility like this. And I think the building, like I said, even if we get 30,000 square feet, we've got equipment upgrades that we can make. There are a number of things that we can do with the additional fundraising, especially outside, walking past. Just incredible position to be in, I guess, at this point.
I don't know by Chris, but I've been telling Rick Batenhorst and other people that we need to have a joint groundbreaking at the Heritage Days, the breakfast of the Heritage Days. Do our groundbreaking and then walk 100 yards to the side of where the east side of the high school with auditorium going to be, and they do their groundbreaking there.
Yep, I agree.
But Dave is not coming for this ground, but he's not coming for this Heritage Days.
He didn't say no definitively, but he didn't believe he would be here.
Either way, that's a great idea.
So I just have a couple comments. First of all, kudos to the committee. I'm just amazed. I mean, it's a great example of build it and they will come, positive thinking, and I'm just so impressed. Just a couple thoughts I want to make sure people have top of mind. And I know it was addressed in the Sun in the editorial, and because I'm on the Southeast Lynn Community Center board, it's very near and dear to my heart. I feel strongly that this wellness center needs to be able to reach the seniors and the economically challenged in our community as well, and we can't forget that. The city of Lisbon and the city of Mount Vernon have about the same percentage of population of their schools that are on free and reduced meals. But this Southeast Lynn Community Center in Lisbon far serves more people from Lisbon, probably because of A, awareness, and B, where it's at. So I think there's more people we could be reaching in Mount Vernon, and I don't want to lose sight of the value in this facility to do that. And then also, I'm going to put the word out, you guys keep in mind that kitchen. I really think there's potential, if we're talking about gaining income from renting out the facility for catered meals and those sorts of things, that area would be difficult to add on to later. And as we were thinking about building it now, what do we need, how can we add in to make sure that we are fully able to serve those that want to serve food to large numbers of people and that sort of thing.
We did talk about that.
Okay, great, I appreciate
It's
that.
on the list.
And we're gonna have pickleball for the old folks.
All right, thank you.
Well said. Anything else?
The only thing I can say is, we do have 172,000 over, but the word proposed worries me. Until that goes out to bid and everything, you might think you got it, but
Yeah.
you might not have that little bit of buffer there.
Yeah, I can say though, I do want to let you know, I wouldn't put that up there without, so there's an extremely strong contingency in that 8.1 million. There's also, that has been to a third-party construction company, Stecker Harmson, to verify numbers. So normally, like I said, I don't put those numbers out there because things fluctuate. I know that it could grow from here, but one of the charges that I put onto OPN is, do not bring me something that is going to necessarily bid right at the number that you give me. I want enough built in so that we're not surprised come
What
bid.
worried me, and actually, what's bad for the University of Iowa is good for us, because they had all their funds, they're cutting back on their building, which helps us because these contractors are gonna be a little bit more hungry. So that helps us that they're not building as much. Because if they were totally swamped, then that hurts us, so.
Our biggest concern, and we just talked about this a week and a half ago, is steel. What the potential tariff on steel is doing. So far they bid 2 projects and one came in 20% low and another one came in right at that or more. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's how it's going to continue. We have told the architects for the city to be in contact with the architects from the school. We're not going to bid the 2 projects at the same time per se, but if contractors know that they're both forthcoming, $20 million worth of work sounds a lot better than $8 million worth of work. So we do believe, because of the timing of the 2 facilities, that we're going to see some economies. And yes, the U of I halting all construction helps as well.
I'd like to move that we accept terms and conditions for the grant offered by the Paul Curran Foundation.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to move that we withdraw our CAT application.
I'll second that one, that we respectfully decline that, because we may come back later on for something else we don't even know, so don't take anybody off.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Tempting, but.
I know.
Motion carries. Next item, discussion and consideration of nature park trail project.
This is a project that was in the CIP, and I wanted to have Dave and Matt here. There's some driveways that are going to be affected, some areas where sidewalk isn't present, obviously. So just wanted to kind of give you roughly an idea of what this project's going to be. I provided a map to you, and Matt and Dave are here, so they can kind of update you on where we're at. This would be a project that would likely hopefully be bid before this fall, so we'll see.
You want me to go? All right, Dave. You go first. Okay. Greetings, everyone. How about Chalk Walk? All right, let me get that out. Thank you. So I think you have a map before you of the proposed trail for the nature trail, or nature park trail. It's obviously a combination of streets. We call it 3rd and 7th because 3rd turns into 7th, but I'm going to call it 21st because I just multiply those together. And it helps me understand what street it is. But as you can see on the map, it starts out at the, actually the bridge where Nature Park has a crossing bridge over the creek. And we're actually going to add a crosswalk there. So it'll be a much safer extension from the trail that goes north and south. So I want to make note of that. That's the first part that's going to be an addition on this trail. And then the trail will start to head towards the driveway of the entryway of North Nature Park. It'll go across the driveway and then all the way down 3rd towards the residence. And then there'll be 5 residences that are affected. And we're working on construction easements for those individuals. I've had conversations with 2 out of the 5. One has been very cordial, one has been wanting to know more information and so forth. I think we shared with you the total dollar amount of that trail back probably about a year ago, I believe, off the top of my head. I don't know if Dave has those numbers, I can go back to my desk and grab those, but there's the bid of the trail, and then there's also an alternate that we'd like to add and look at and consider. I don't know if I brought this to your attention or not, but it's something we call core glow. And basically it's, well, I won't worry about that, but it's basically just little rocks that go into the concrete. And there's a process, but I'm not going to get too explicit with that. Dave might do that. But it actually glows in the dark. And it's kind of an additional feature that I thought would be really cool to add to one of our trails. And what better place to do it than right on a dark space there. I don't know if it'll replace lighting per se, but it'd be a really cool feature that I think would be an addition to Mount Vernon. And if I may, just turn off the lights real quick. Is that okay? Just trying to... May I approach? There's several different sizes and different colors, but that's what it does.
Just don't ask Nick his opinion on this.
And Nick is a fan of these.
He's already showing his opinion.
It's okay, Nick, I appreciate your comments. But as I said, that portion is an alternate because we don't know what the exact cost is because it hasn't been done here before in Iowa that we're aware of. I mean, Dave can speak to that. He's been calling around trying to find a contractor that has done something like this. This product is out of Canada, and it's done in several places within the Midwest, but nothing here in Iowa. So we can't really drive to see it and look and see what it's about. But anyway, that's the facts that I have. Anything you'd like to add or any questions you have right now? Dave might give you a schedule. It would be sort of aggressive, but...
I have some questions.
Okay.
So this would be putting in place sidewalk in front of 3 residences that don't currently have sidewalk?
Correct. And so it'd be a 6-foot trail that would be added, and then there's going to be some approaches, and it'll be brand new to a lot of these, to all these individuals.
And you said construction easements, or, so, I mean, my assumption is that this trail/sidewalk will be fully within the city right of way. Is that
Correct.
true?
Correct.
So the easements would only be necessary for equipment or temporary use of the property owner's property during construction?
Correct.
Purely a construction easement?
I'm going to let Dave jump in.
And then one last question. While it is unprecedented, this could be viewed as the first opportunity for us to put in sidewalks where they don't exist with the property owner sharing in that cost, which would be politically challenging. But at the same time, it would begin to establish a precedent which might be useful should we choose to do that in the future. And I'm going to float that politically challenging view.
When you say sharing costs,
Well, so, and the reason I say that is because in years back, here's the time machine, we talked about when we needed to redo some sidewalks and we wanted them to be 6 feet wide as a trail or 8, something wider than standard. We would ask the property owner to pay for the normal width and then we would pay for the extra width.
okay,
That was a cost-sharing model that had been floated in some conversations about, as long as we're replacing this sidewalk here, let's have the property owner do it as a 6 foot. We'll do it as a 6 foot, have them pay us for the 4 foot, or whatever standard width is, right? So, you know, I'm kind of anxious for us to begin the process of putting in sidewalks where they don't exist, but they should by law, but somebody decided not to require that person because they were asleep at the wheel of government, which is irritating because now we're the bad guys. But, you know, when are we willing to start that? This might be an opportunity.
yeah, that's entirely up to you. The way we were approaching this, which again may be ahead of the cart before the horse, was to have city pay for this trail and maintain this trail.
And maintain it as well.
Correct.
Aye. That's my response to that.
Okay.
I
If
mean,
I remember right, we do have a budget line item set for it.
for
correct?
maintaining the trail.
Well, for
Trails.
trails.
From law.
Understood. I'm not saying we don't have the money.
No,
Yeah.
correct.
I'm saying if all the property owners have to maintain a strip of concrete in front of their house, if there is one, these people are gonna have a strip of concrete in front of their house, why would they not be required to maintain?
Because we are building a trail.
Yeah, not a sidewalk.
So, but in the.
I'm not arguing with you, I'm
In the
just-
prior conversations about, we're gonna replace this sidewalk, and the city might say, well, let's make it 6 feet wide instead of 4, would be, I mean, I know that nobody in this room is probably part of those conversations, because this is kind of way back. You know, it never in my mind was it that the city would then maintain that trail. I mean, it's just kind of a strange situation. I think it's worthy of some
Well, make a good point
conversation.
also because we've got the sidewalk program.
Yeah.
We've got an upcoming phase, which is to replace or add sidewalk in areas that don't have it.
We do have a plan for that.
Well, not at our cost, you know.
I didn't know that we had a plan for it to be done at the homeowner's cost.
Yeah.
That was
That was the tail end of the
That
sidewalk
was
program.
my
So the
understanding.
first part of the sidewalk program was to go through and fix all the gears down the road.
Well, I understand that you've talked about it as a.
Correct, there is no official plan as far
Right,
as,
but the political will to do that phase, I believe, is going to be in scarce supply personally.
But I think it distinguishes between path and sidewalk. That's the thing you gotta
It's the fact that
define.
matters.
typically, in the past, if we've required a trail connection, the city has maintained the trails.
Even when it's on private as well, and an easement adjacent.
Yes, because we often have trails through subdivisions to interconnect trails. So we have in the past done this. Moving forward, all sidewalks, you know, as far as Dave and I had talked, would be required to at least be 5 feet in width in all new subdivisions, because otherwise you have to go, how many feet? Every 200 feet, you have to have a 5 by 5 foot section for ADA standards. So it was just easier to require the 5 foot sidewalks moving forward. But it does present some conversation, and when you say political will, I would sit here and agree with you. That's why that portion of the program was pushed to the very end, obviously. So one of the things that we would like the planner to do is we've identified where those pockets exist, but we haven't identified where those pockets exist, what's there. So how many obstacles do we have to work around in each one of those areas? And so one of the long-term goals with the new hire is that would be one of their pet projects to work on as they're working through the sidewalk program. But going back to what Matt is talking about,
yes, the construction of this has always been considered a trail. And the trail connecting the established trail network through our park and then connecting back up. Is that the street where we have everybody cross, all the kids cross?
There's
stop
no
sign?
sidewalk.
There's no sidewalk on Third until you get to, I believe, A Avenue.
They cross on 4th Street.
Fourth Street is where they cross.
Right, so this would still leave a gap between where existing sidewalk is to the west?
No, it would connect to it, but it wouldn't be where where the visioning committee has designed the crossing of Highway 1.
Yes.
It would have to be
Four.
just another street, just a diagonal, I mean, another, go down one street and then another
Okay,
street.
well, I didn't mean to hijack this presentation, but when I see an opportunity to kind of push the boundaries of
Yes.
citizens putting the sidewalks where they aren't, I just want to kind of.
I understand, absolutely, and that's a conversation you all.
Truly why we were bringing this forward today.
Yeah.
As a discussion item before we bring you actual plan and specifications for adoption.
Because, you know, we do have trails that go through Stonebrook, some other neighborhoods that we do maintain already, that we didn't require the homeowners to.
Oh, sure.
Lisbon Road is my prime example. I don't know when that was constructed or how it was constructed, but it is 6 foot. And we maintain, and there's property owners that, we have no property there other than just a trail.
Well, I wasn't aware that that was 6 feet,
Yeah.
except for out.
It's 6 foot all the way to the city limit sign. And we maintain that
Down to First Avenue,
all the way to,
or First Street, I mean? From
yeah,
First Street
all the way
Lisbon.
to Nature Park, or to the Haunt Creek Trail.
Yeah.
We maintain all of that. And there's multiple property owners that we would pass. I'm not for or against them. I think there's something in the terminology with when a trail's connected that we're required to maintain it somewhere.
So if I put a wider sidewalk in front of my house.
We're not gonna
city-
maintain it.
That's a true That's even a wide sidewalk.
Rocks in it?
I actually did put in a wide sidewalk.
The caveat's always been, is it considered part of the trail
I never
network?
asked it.
There you go. It's been an interesting battle with the rocks because you have Nick and myself on one side looking at the dollar signs and the maintenance and Meredith and Matt on the other thinking this would be the coolest trail, it would get us on the map. So,
It would, it would.
Yeah.
Well, I'm super excited about this. I'm not excited about it glowing in the dark. Is it by Nature Park?
Yeah,
And is that something that you find in nature?
yeah, these are rocks.
Just checking.
Commercial grade
The
performance.
ground up lightning
I'm
bugs.
liking it from a marketing perspective that we could say that we're the only in Iowa, you know?
Oh, brother.
One more area that.
I think so, honestly, depends on how much it costs.
Yeah.
It's just an idea, like I said, it's the alternate.
Never hurts
so
to
we-
ask.
Right, we want to see what the cost of the alternate would be, and if it's within reason of the boundaries that we have, then we thought we might pursue that, or approach that. But if it's not, then we scratch that idea and we just go with regular 6-foot
Do
trail.
you think about dyeing the concrete like candy stripe?
Pardon me?
No.
Oh. I don't want to be Wizard of Oz, but, I just thought it would be cool to have another feature like that. We could say, hey, go check out our Glow Trail. We're the only one in Iowa.
Thanks for thinking out of the box, Matt, seriously.
We can-
You can always, we can
And
always
you
pull
can
you
do a
back.
Halloween thing along with it.
Do a Halloween
There
thing,
you go.
you do,
It's good to have the ideas.
so.
It looks like, are we gonna be replacing a large section of their driveways kind of there? Is that what that signifies?
So what happens is on the driveways that exceed the ADA slope, we have to flatten that trail and that's land in the driveways on either side. That's why that's being shown for removal and the reason we need additional easement on those properties so we can do that work.
All right.
Dave, is there anything else you wanted to add to?
The estimate on this was just under 100,000, and depending upon what the contractors decide on the alternate bid for the core glow, they could be somewhere right near that amount. We have some utilities we need to work with in order to get those relocated. We're going to be going in the same area where they currently are located. We'll try to get those done. There's a tee box on the golf course, Frisbee golf course, that has to be relocated as part of the project as well. And there will be some trees impacted in that area in order to get this to go through. So that's general scope of the project, but Matt's done a very good job of describing it.
You have something else there?
Well, I was just gonna share, I've got, you know, I think we shared this back in January 10th, 2017, so it's been a little while, but estimations that V&K gave us were, which one do you want me to use, Dave?
That 90.
That one. Okay. Anywhere from 76,000 for a 6-foot trail to 94,000 for a 10-foot trail. So we researched to see what it would cost for certain distance, for certain widths and so forth. The project total would be 76,000 for the 6-foot trail, but that is not including the alternate. So just so you're aware of that. And as we talked last year around CIP time, I think it was $100,000 is what was allocated for this project.
Matt, that was a preliminary estimate that had the trail just going to A Avenue, the additional amount to connect to that sidewalk halfway between A and B. That added some to it, so
Okay.
that's why I was saying we're just under 100,000 with the
Okay.
current, having the project develop a little further.
So the current engineer's estimate comes into the CIP budget.
Yes, and the amount that we have in sales tax actually far exceeds that estimate, so.
So the lost money is there.
Correct. So I think the lost amount, and I have to verify this tomorrow, is closer to like $150,000. Cool.
And could we begin construction this season yet?
I think if we can get the easements worked out here, we'd be willing to push this pretty quickly. Probably looking at the first meeting in June, trying to get the public hearing set and so forth. If it did shortly after that, we would have this constructed hopefully by end of October.
Right?
Yeah.
Just in time for
End of
Halloween.
October, there you go.
I planned it that way.
All that considered, I would like to move that we go ahead with whatever it takes to get to bids, final project details for the bid.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
There you go, Matthew. Next item, fiber Wi-Fi update. Chris?
I just wanted to give you an update where the communications that I've received thus far. I'm on, who has internet and cable, I believe, from Cedar Rapids to Iowa City. My understanding is Iowa City or Mediacom dropped the lawsuit for Iowa City, so I believe they're free and clear to pursue further efforts. And they were kind of, in our conversation that Marty and I had with Representatives Imon, that was one of the biggest questions I had was the pending lawsuit and what they would be able to provide here in Mount Vernon based upon that. But my understanding is Imon has communicated with Scobman and is currently working at a route to get to the new development. So there's potential for those that will be in that new development to have another internet option. They also are looking at, so they're my understanding is they're going to be the new Wi-Fi providers in the Iowa City Mall area.
It's already in place.
In place. And I think they have significant thoughts about doing the same thing in Mount Vernon. The question is location of utilities right now and how we would get down to serve the downtown. But I'm waiting on them. They're going to get me a couple of proposals. One on potential interconnections on Highway 1 as they go down there to get to that new subdivision and as it relates to some of the buildings that we have there. And the second is coming this direction from Cornell College, the water tower and other individuals. And that, if there's a way to partner with those two projects, it kind of helps close the gap and maybe moves those projects along a little bit quicker. Ariane is another one that has been in my office and had communication with. That communication's kind of fell by the wayside because the representative from Ariane has left, and the new one was just hired within the last 2 weeks. And so he and I have been working on getting a date together to speak. But that's the updates that I have thus far, and I know Councilman Christensen, if you've got anything additional.
I have some questions. One thing that I remember is that they will meet somewhere, just a very small building tower within which to put some equipment, to sort of create the primary terminal. They had said if the city was going to partner with them to some extent, that could be perhaps put in Memorial Park, over by the generators. Or then I think I also remember them saying maybe Cornell was going to provide space for that. I don't recall. That's just one thing people might keep in mind. The other thing is, it seems to me that given the price point for the houses up in the new Stonebrook addition, if I was building houses out there, I'd certainly want to offer that futuristic amenity of fiber to the home. And so then, of course, if that were to happen, then how would I feel if I was living in the older part of town, having to deal with the current internet providers, which I've heard can be a bit frustrating to deal with.
The interesting thing that,
You've heard or you actually?
Actually, I've had great experience with my current provider, and I don't have cable.
so to answer the Stonebrook, I've given them all the contact information for Bryce Cliffs. Communication, I haven't been able to get together, is the last that I've heard. The one thing that I took away from the meeting that we had with them is one of the individuals that was at the meeting was actually part of the cloud. And that was another question, is how sustainable is IMON as far as it relates to being another provider. And he was able to bring many points, lessons learned from the cloud experiment, however you want to call it, I guess. So they're not going to build out faster than I think what they feel is appropriate. They have an extremely good process of coming in and having conversations with individuals where they're going to be to make sure there's a need, and then they just upgrade the facilities that they are providing. So we do have handholds that we already paid for with IMON, so we do have the ability to access their fiber communications now. And I think that I don't want to say they speak with me weekly, but at least once a month I get some communication, both from the individual doing the work in town and then more on the planning side. And still waiting, like I said, for those two proposals as far as what they're asking for from the city. But I definitely would encourage the more providers, the better. It's in 18 years, the single biggest issue that I hear about more than anything is the lack of diversity when it comes to who provides cable and internet.
Competition. And for the Skogeman, is it limited to just internet, or is it also television, potentially telephone?
I haven't talked to him since Iowa City dropped.
Right.
I think it was going to be telephone and internet initially, until they had decided that case. Now that I believe the meeting time dropped, they did say they had the capability to offer it all. So,
Be awesome.
yeah, no.
I know downtown businesses have been talking about this coming on, insurance agencies on the Bay has, and they're very much supportive of that.
Excellent.
Just
Well, just-
positively towards that.
Because that's another thing IMON says, they really like to start with business first and then go to residential.
Downtown businesses are talking about it, and they're very positive.
Good to hear.
Good. Anything else? All right, next item, water sewer exemption update.
So I gave you a number of communities that responded to my ask as it related to water and sewer exemptions. Nobody ever exempted, I think I should say nobody. On very rare occasions did they exempt out a water bill. It was typically either a nonprofit or a church, and something catastrophic had happened before. Everybody that I've talked to thus far is willing to look at sewer, what they pay to process water, treats water. So their feeling has generally been that they have to pay for their water. So I didn't give them an opportunity to pay it over There are others, like I said, Tipton does give a $250 credit for both water and sewer. You have to use them together when you do that, up to $500. And then Center Point and Asbury. Asbury's city administrator said, I'm just the Grinch, we don't waive anything. Again, just wanted to get some information back in front of you, not expecting a decision or necessarily even direction, but this stems from the Bowers conversation. I did, like I said, reach out to everyone, this is typically who responded. North Liberty, obviously Tipton being two that she had, and Center Point being communities that she had pointed out at the meeting itself. So this will be a future item as far as what you would like us to do.
How does a homeowner prove that the leak didn't go into the sewer system?
Here's what I would say. For the most part, whether or not they intend to or not intend to, when they tell us what the leak was, we have a pretty good idea whether or not it did or didn't. A leaky toilet, for instance, goes in the sewer system. Somebody turning on a garden hose and forgetting about it over the weekend probably tends not to.
Yeah.
In this instance, I would say it probably didn't make its way into the sewer system. It went into a cistern. So we have nothing, like I said, on the books that allows us to do anything yet. We can prepare something if you would like. As I stated in my direction to you, I think Charles City is the one that I provided is probably the most distinct of all of them that I've seen, and I would just probably forward that on to the city attorney to have him review if that was something you were interested in.
See what I've heard.
Yeah, I feel like we should.
I'll send that to you tomorrow.
Pardon me?
I'll send that to you tomorrow. That's all I have. I just wanted to give you an update, let you know that it's moving forward. It's just,
Yeah, it's good. All right, we'll move on to reports.
Do we need a motion?
No.
nope.
No action. Move on to reports. I just want to, Matt already mentioned it, but obviously kudos to another great weekend for Chalk the Walk. For everybody, volunteers, the artists, musicians, everybody that stopped in town. So what a great weekend. Unfortunately, we got that 3 minutes of rain. So I know that kind of stole some of the color.
Yeah.
But
Hail.
After the presentations.
yeah.
We got hail.
Yeah. Tradition. Anything else? Anything council committee report? Anybody have anything else? Chris?
Nothing much. We had the lead program went a couple of weeks longer than expected because of a mechanical breakdown. We started getting applications for both the associate planner and operator position, so feel pretty good about where those are going. And Nick's been working with Klusner on crack sealing and seal coat, so we try to do that yearly as well, right before the end of the fiscal year, trying to maintain what we've got. So, other than that, the only other item is the credit card companies. I think we're down to 2 different companies. So hopefully we'll be, by the start of the fiscal year, accepting credit card payments.
Exciting.
Yeah.
I think that'll probably get more positive press.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I know it's another thing for the office to have to deal with, but we're finally there. Good God.
And I know it's been a little painful, so thanks for your work to do that.
Yeah, I gotta give Stu, Marcia, and Meredith a lot of credit because they've done all the labor on it.
Anybody have anything else? All right, otherwise I'll entertain a motion to enter into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Take a little break, give everybody an opportunity to
They're out.